Welcome to Learn English Now. Get ready, everyone, because this story will take you on an exciting adventure. Let the story begin. In 1965, a new country called Malaysia did something unusual. It asked Singapore, a small island, to leave. This was not a happy time for Singapore. Usually when a country becomes independent, people celebrate. But Singapore's leader, Lee Kuan Yew, was very sad. He had wanted Singapore to stay with Malaysia. He cried when he spoke about it. He knew tough times were ahead for his nation. Singapore was already in a very bad state. Most people, about 2/3, lived in poor areas called slums. Many people had no jobs and unemployment was high. Different groups of people on the island fought often, leading to violence. Singapore also had no natural resources like oil or minerals. It was a tiny island without anything valuable to sell. Its big neighbors did not want to trade with Singapore and were not friendly. Also, British soldiers were leaving, taking 20% of the economy with them. Singapore looked like it would stay poor and troubled forever. But today, Singapore is one of the richest countries in the world. Its people are well educated, healthy, and work hard. It has great buildings and roads. It makes many high-tech products and is a big center for business and transport in Southeast Asia. How did this small, poor island nation become such a successful and rich place? This book will tell its amazing story to a new port. The British East India Company was a very powerful group. It made a lot of money from shipping and trading goods around the world. One of its most important goods was Chinese tea. To buy this tea, the company sold large amounts of opium from India. All these valuable goods traveled through a thin water passage called the Malacca Strait. This sea route quickly became the company's best way to make money, bringing in half of all its profits. The company needed its own port in this region. Such a port would help protect their ships and make long journeys easier. However, the Dutch were a strong sea power. They had control over these lands for 200 years. They did not let other countries trade freely there. Because of this, the British East India Company had a clear rule. Do not do anything that might make the Dutch angry. They did not risk their very profitable trade routes. But one determined official, Sir Thomas Raffles, had a bold idea. He decided to find a place for a new port, even if it went against company rules. He chose a small island that did not have many people living on it. This island was in a perfect spot, right at the end of the Malayan Peninsula. This island would later be known as Singapore. After some talks in Europe, the Dutch finally agreed. They did not stop the British from making a port there. Singapore was not going to be like other ports. To attract traders and ships away from the Dutch ports, Raffles made Singapore a free port. This meant there were no taxes on businesses or on any activities related to the port. This was a huge advantage over other ports in the area which had high taxes. News about the special new port spread quickly across Asia. The success was almost immediate. In just 4 years, Singapore attracted many traders. Tens of thousands of people came from places like China, Malaya, and India. Soon, The water near Singapore was full of ships. Everyone wanted to come to this place to trade and make money without paying taxes. This quick growth showed how important Singapore would become as a busy place for trade in the region. 3. A busy place. Sir Thomas Raffles' idea for a free port made Singapore very popular. Thousands of traders from China, Malaya, and India came in just 4 years. The sea around Singapore was often full of ships, all seeking tax-free riches. The town grew quickly, and many more people moved to the island for new opportunities. But this fast growth had a dark side. There was little strong control, so bad things became common. Slave trading, gambling, and opium dens appeared everywhere. Violence and prostitution were also widespread. Singapore became a place of much wealth, but also a dangerous and unruly place for many. Singapore's importance grew much more with the opening of the Suez Canal in Egypt. This canal made the sea journey from England to China 5,000 miles shorter. Ships saved time and money. This new shorter route meant many more ships used the Malacca Strait, and most stopped at Singapore. This made Singapore the most important port in the region. By 1867, Singapore became a crown colony of the British Empire. Another important change made Singapore even richer. People in nearby Malaya started growing many rubber trees, and Malaya also had a lot of tin. The world needed more rubber and tin. Making them valuable goods, Singapore became the main hub for these riches. Rubber and tin from Malaya were brought to Singapore. Here they were prepared and then shipped across the globe. Singapore had no natural resources itself, but became vital for Malaya's trade. Due to its growing importance, the British military also increased its presence. They built more dockyards and offered services, creating more jobs. By 1900, over 200,000 people lived in Singapore. Many lived better lives than those in nearby lands. Singapore had changed from a small island into a very busy and wealthy place, thanks to trade and its great location for a hard time. Singapore was growing well, a busy port city, but its time of peace ended when the Second World War began. The war started far away, but soon it reached Asia. The Japanese Empire began to take over many lands. In December 1941, Japanese soldiers started to invade Malaya. This country was very close to Singapore. In just 2 months, the Japanese army reached Singapore's doorstep. On February 15, 1942, Singapore had to surrender. The city fell to the Japanese army. This marked the beginning of a very hard time for Singapore. For 3 long years, the people of Singapore suffered greatly. There was much destruction, and life was very difficult under the Japanese occupation. When the war finally ended in 1945, Singapore was freed. However, the fighting to take back the island caused even more damage. Singapore was no longer a shining city. It was like a pile of broken buildings and burned areas. The city was devastated by the war. The British Empire, which controlled Singapore, was also weak after the war. Because of this, they did not help Singapore rebuild in a planned way. As a result, new parts of the city grew without any order. Many poor living areas, called slums, appeared everywhere. These were terrible places to live. The city's roads and water pipes were not fixed properly. There was a lot of dirt and unhealthy conditions. One travel magazine even wrote that Singapore was full of utter filth and poverty. People could not believe how bad it was until they saw it with their own eyes. Life in Singapore became very difficult for everyone. Before the war, different groups of people lived there, but they did not feel like one nation. They often had different ideas and sometimes fought among themselves. After the war, with bad living conditions and many people without jobs, these fights became worse. There was more violence. This made Singapore's problems even bigger. The city was in a very bad state, facing many difficult challenges after the war five a new country. After World War II, Singapore was in a very difficult situation. Many people started to want freedom from British rule. They had seen that the British could not defend Singapore during the war, and other countries were gaining independence. A smart lawyer, Lee Kuan Yew, became an important leader. He formed a political group called the People's Action Party, PAP. In 1955, his party won some local elections. Lee Kuan Yew strongly believed that Singapore should be independent. However, Lee Kuan Yew also believed Singapore could not survive alone. It had no natural resources. Its economy was very connected to Malaya, its neighbor. Also, Singapore needed help to stop the fighting among different groups of people living there. So in 1959, Lee Kuan Yew became Prime Minister. He promised to join Singapore with Malaya. He thought this was the only way for Singapore to be safe. On September 16, 1963, Singapore joined with Malaya, North Borneo and Sarawak. Together, they formed a new country called the Federation of Malaysia. But this new union did not last long. In Malaysia, the ruling party wanted to favor ethnic Malays. This was a big problem for Singapore, where most people were Chinese. Soon there was a lot of violence in the streets between different groups. Lee Kuan Yew's party tried to make things fair for everyone, but Malaysia's ruling party saw Singapore as a threat. They thought Singapore caused too many problems. So after only 2 years, Malaysia's leaders voted to remove Singapore from the country. Singapore became an independent nation, but it did not want this. Lee Kuan Yew was very sad. He knew Singapore was now alone and faced a very hard future. 6A Strong Plan. Lee Kuan Yew, the new leader of independent Singapore, faced a truly impossible challenge. His small nation had just been unwillingly separated from Malaysia, leaving it vulnerable and alone. Most of its people, about 70%, lived in very poor areas called slums. There were not enough jobs for its growing population, and the island had no natural resources like oil or minerals. Different ethnic groups often fought on the streets, leading to much social unrest. Singapore also faced threats from its neighbors. Malaysia planned to stop trading, hoping to harm Singapore's economy. To the south, Indonesia seemed to have plans for invasion. The British military was leaving, taking many jobs and money. Lee Kuan Yew knew he had to act quickly and strongly to save his country. He decided that Singapore needed very strong leadership. He would use a firm hand, often called an iron fist, to create order and stability. His main goal was to stop the widespread violence and keep his political party, the People's Action Party (PAP), in power. To do this, he limited individual freedoms. Free speech was not allowed in the same way as in many Western countries. People who spoke against the government could be jailed without trial. The government also made very strict rules and punishments for actions like rioting, violence, and drug use, for example. Things like chewing gum in public, writing graffiti, or public drunkenness could lead to harsh penalties, even public canings. If someone criticized the government, they could be sued and lose all their money. Groups like religious extremists or those wanting to rejoin Malaysia were silenced. Lee Kuan Yew believed that strong authoritarian rule was the only way to control the deep ethnic and social tensions. This strict approach worked to stop violence and bring stability to the nation. Lee Kuan Yew believed that if he could provide people with good jobs and a peaceful, safe life, they would accept having fewer personal freedoms. He made a clear promise: economic growth and social peace in exchange for political control. While elections continued, they were managed to ensure the PAP would always win, making Singapore a one-party state. This system, led by the PAP, continues today. With the country now calm and stable, Lee Kuan Yew was ready to begin major changes to Singapore's economy. These changes would lead to what many call an economic miracle. 7. Building a nation. Singapore faced a huge housing problem. Most people, about 70%, lived in poor slums without clean water or toilets. Lee Kuan Yew's government started a big plan. They bought land cheaply and built many new, modern apartments. These homes were sold at low prices that people could afford. The government wanted citizens to own their homes, as this would make them feel more part of the nation and help them build wealth to help people buy these homes. A special savings plan was created. It was called the Central Provident Fund, CPF. Workers saved part of their pay in this fund, and their employers also added money. Lee Kuan Yew changed the rules so people could use their CPF savings to buy their houses. Over time, the amount saved increased. For example, 25% from the worker's pay and 25% from the employer was saved. This helped many families move from slums into their own homes. Today, most Singaporeans own the homes built by the state. Building houses was important, but Singapore also needed jobs. The country had no natural resources and few trading partners. So Lee Kuan Yew decided to attract foreign companies. This was the only way to grow the economy. The government made business rules very easy. Taxes were low, and some foreign companies received special deals like 10 years without paying taxes. This made Singapore very attractive to investors. To keep business costs low, unions were tightly controlled, and companies could fire workers who went on strike. This tough approach ensured foreign companies felt secure investing in Singapore. The government also built new roads, ports, and special industrial areas for factories. Because Singapore's own market was small, it focused on making goods for export. The strategy. combined with Singapore's good location and business-friendly policies, brought many companies. Investors also moved to Singapore from places like Hong Kong due to political issues in China. This plan worked very well. In just 10 years, almost everyone had a job with near zero unemployment. The economy grew very fast, about 13% each year. Singapore continued to welcome foreign investment, becoming one of the easiest places in the world to do business. This success gave people affordable homes and stable jobs, building a strong nation from very little ate a rich future. Today, Singapore is known as a very rich country. It is the fourth richest nation in the world. Its people are among the most educated and healthy globally. They are also very productive. Singapore has some of the best infrastructure like roads and buildings. It is a leader in making high-tech products. It is also a very important place for money and shipping across Southeast Asia. This success is a big change from when the country first started. Hey there, just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you. Thanks for sticking around till the end of the story. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss a new story. Have a wonderful day. Take care and see you next time.